Hello, Effie and Dimitris. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. As you may already know, we celebrate this year 30 years of European Federation of Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy. And we decided for this celebration to do various discussions and talks with colleagues that have been there from the beginning. Both of you have been there since many, many years. So I will expect today a very interesting discussion about the way that EFPP starting and about the way that EFPP changed during all these long years. Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to hear from you. How was your first interaction with the idea, because at the beginning it was just an idea, with the idea of EFPP?
Well, hello, and you brought back to mind the initiative that Brian Martindale got, and he contacted John Tsiantis, and we, the three of us, John, Dimitris, and myself, came to London. I had left London a year ago before the inauguration of EFPP, after spending 15 years in London. And it was not a welcome in London. It was so snowy. We couldn't even walk, even to go up to the Freud Museum ourselves. So it was a very peculiar London, but at the same time, within the room where the getting together happened, it was such a warm atmosphere. I do remember it. I mean, it is 30 years ago, but I remember it vividly. I don't know about you, Dimitris. I mean, you must have memories of that too.
Well, I have some memories where the discussions and the meeting with the rest of the people was really interesting and hopeful. But it was the first meeting. It was really a kind of embarrassment about meeting and organizing something which is not very well made. And at the end of the meeting, really, as a kind of offer, was to drove us to a place in which they were going to present a folk dancing, the barn dancing. Well, I don't know what it means in your language, but it is somehow a folk dance that you're going around this and that and the other, and you change
partner. Yes.
And it was, we were really very tired. We were looking surprised from all this part dancing. And then we danced a bit, jumping from here and there, kicking in the air. And at the end, we call a taxi to go to sleep. But the barn dancing, it's very vivid to me.
So it was a very vivid and energetic start, yeah?
Oh, yes. We were trying to find out in which way we were going to proceed. And everything was unknown.
But what was, at the time, what was the main idea? What was the fantasy?
Well, it was not only a fantasy, it was also a kind of, well, I could call it a dream also, because EFPP started as psychoanalytic psychotherapy in the public sector. And we tried to keep that not only in mind, but also in practice in every single country. Of course, that was the most difficult part, to establish it within the public sector in each of the European countries, because none, apart from Britain and perhaps a bit in some other European countries, that was not possible unless it was done in an agreement among the colleagues who worked in the public sector, but not a psychotherapist being a registered profession, not having registered clinics where psychotherapy could be offered. It was a very difficult task, and but it's always wonderful to have a goal, to have something to try and persuade governments, colleagues, professional bodies to do as much. We still try.
So as I hear you, the idea was at the beginning to allow a space where there would be possible to have psychoanalytical, psychotherapeutical training or to receive psychoanalytical help. This was the idea of the beginning for the public sector.
Well, the training could not be organized by the state. So we, of course, accepted that all trainings were on a semi-private way. But the application of psychoanalytic psychotherapy to be within the public sector. And I think that was the goal, that was the main difference, and what new the EFPP was bringing into.
Yeah, but what are you saying? It brings to my mind that just a few years ago, there was a decision where the public field was removed by the title of the EFPP. And we can perceive that as a stepping back. Yeah, if at the beginning the goal was to open and to help psychoanalytical psychotherapy to be present within the public field, we can perceive this idea of removing the title as stepping back, or why not withdrawing this idea of having a place within the public field.
Yes, and we very much concentrated on trainings. And because of some countries having a full training in psychoanalytic psychotherapy, particularly the field which I know best, the field of child and adolescent psychoanalytic psychotherapy, was not organized in many European countries. So what we did initially, and that was with Dimitris and Miranda Feuchtwang, to have the minimum standards of training, so members then could be accepted as EFPP. And Dimitris can say more about that, but what we did initially, Lydia Tischler also played quite an important role to organize and supervise and help in every possible way other European countries to develop their training. So instead of not permitting them to become members, to allow them to be one step behind, and help them out, supervise them. And so lots of colleagues were traveling a lot at that time. Nowadays we use Zoom and Skype, but at that time there was a lot of traveling to do supervisions, to do seminars, to do nearly everything in order to set up a training in many, many European countries. And I think that was one of the achievements of EFPP.
Indeed, we have today a bit of nostalgia regarding this possibility of freely traveling everywhere. But I imagine that beside the importance of teaching and training and supervising and other things, it was also the importance of getting in touch and interacting with people from very different countries with very different backgrounds.
Yeah, Dimitris wanted to.
That's my point of view. I mean, perhaps the beginning has to do with public sector, but that the meaning was that there was a tendency to spread psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic thinking and working as far as it was possible. I mean, we didn't like this kind of introverted, sophisticated groups of analysts who were talking about theory. And we would like, at least that was my fantasy and not only mine, to spread it more, to make it something much more alive. And that was one. The second was the dream of the European Union. Those days, the European Union has been established more or less, and we have the fantasy that everything is possible through the European Union, and we will succeed through European Union to have a kind of title, official title of psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic psychotherapy in every country. And we found that was impossible, but there were a lot of efforts to do it. And the third, I think, it was this kind of, I don't know if it is dispute, if it is in continuous discussion about psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic psychotherapy, with what is the gold thing and what is the carpet, and who is really in touch with the original. And well, you can imagine all this, and we would really try to establish a kind of approach that anyone who is working psychoanalytically, following some basic ideas and basic how do you call it? Basic issues, I would say, of training and of kind of working. It was more or less accepted. To respect and work psychoanalytically means not to be psychoanalysts, but you may work psychoanalytically because you are thinking like that, because you have a lot of teaching, you have a lot of training about it, and you respect and psychoanalysis, and you expect to be respected by. So for me, that was the third reason why we try all this. And this kind of one of the first conferences in psychoanalysis was about psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic psychotherapy. One of the first. And it was in Luxembourg, with a couple of it's Cristina, Cristina and Serge. Yes. Okay. And so let's go further, but just adding my ideas with Effie's ideas about the beginning.
Listening to what you said, Dimitris, I was wondering in the echo of your ideas, if this structure of having at the beginning 3rd section and then 4th section, of putting all the way of working together, it was helpful. It is helpful to have this kind of structure with all the 4th section together, with all the approaches, and trying to see what is the particularity of each approach, but also how can we do it together, how can we correlate, how can we work together within these different sections of the FPP, adult, child and adolescent group, and couple and family.
Exactly, because we believe that each one of them has something particular to do and to share with others. The whole culture was to include, not to exclude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To take care. Jesus Christ. And we go on these ideas, more or less. Yes. It's exactly how you say it.
What happened, Effie, after the snowy London?
Well, I think a lot of work happened, and to work together with colleagues from all over Europe was not just a novelty. It was very fruitful in the sense that we had lots of things in common, but also a lot of differences. And as Dimitris was talking about inclusion and not excluding colleagues who didn't have the same training, who didn't have the same, we try to have the same principles at least, and then go ahead bit by bit. And all the meetings, all the delegate meetings, because I was about nearly 20 years a delegate of Greece, and Dimitris equally so, and all that, of course, was necessary at the beginning, but then we gave space to younger colleagues to be delegates. But at that time, Dimitris talked at the beginning about the barn dance. In every single conference, there were very interesting papers to be thought about and a lot of exchange. But the high point was always the last evening, where the getting together, eating together, and dancing non-stop. And I do remember that the dancing was in every single conference, but also in every single delegates meeting. It was something that we couldn't do without.
Well, that you're talking about yourself, because you are a great dancer.
Because Dimitris only danced at the when we had an EFPP conference in Cyprus, and he was one of the organizers there, and
I was obliged to.
And he danced non-stop. But in every other conference, he stepped behind, and I danced all evening, and the friendships become stronger when you dance together with colleagues, with from all over the European countries. And of course, that was one of the things that created friendships also, because we were not that many initially. So we became much closer to each other. Now, of course, we all wanted EFPP to grow, but by growing, you also have distances. You don't know everybody. I mean, in the last EFPP conference in Belgrade, I remember meeting all the group analysts whom I didn't know at all. And there were just a few from the older generation to which I belong, where I could liaise with. But of course, you can always get to know everybody else.
I can imagine that at the beginning it was a feeling of closeness and intimacy, and then when you grow and you become larger and you welcome many other people, this tends to be a bit strange. It is not possible to keep in touch with everybody. But because you talked about the EFPP conference, this is one of the most important tradition of the EFPP. Maybe you could tell us a bit about the first EFPP conference.
The one that was in Athens.
Yeah.
It was so hot at that time that I
No, it was normal, not hot.
It was end of May, and the temperature was above 30 something degrees, and that
normal.
Yes, for summertime for Greeks, not at the end of May. Usually, end of May is still quite nicely warm, not too hot. And I remember none of our guests could manage that. And yes, I remember not only Ladam, but also Anna Alvarez, and they all found it so hot. Anne-Marie Sandler also was among the speakers. And who was the fourth one?
More or less, you're talking about the North Europeans. Of course.
Come on. No, but I remember the executive committee meetings were happening in our house in Marathon at the seaside. And Dimitris was bringing fruits to the organizing committee. And it was next to the sea, so at least after long days' work, swimming could be a bonus. But it was a very interesting conference, attended by lots and lots, not only Greeks, but many European colleagues. And the papers from that conference, together with others, of course, became the first book, the first clinical monograph, which was edited initially by John Tsiandis, who was the senior editor. And I think it was, yes, it was countertransference in psychoanalytic psychotherapy, I think, yes, with Anne-Marie Sadler and Dimitris and Brian. And that's how also from the conferences, the clinical monographs became an establishment of the EFPP. It was a long tradition that then the work with parents was also, you see, initially the focus was on the child and adolescent section, although after that Serge Pris also on the topic that Dimitris was talking about, became the senior editor, and then psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, the controversies and the future of it was also on the theme of a conference, which became the clinical monograph. And the clinical monographs were a sort of characteristic of the EFPP. Then Didier Husel and Monica Laniado took over, and it is a rich series, and it's interesting that they were called monographs. I don't know what's happening with that series nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays they are still there, and after a couple of years having the joy to work with Anne-Marie Schlosser, today I am the editor-in-chief of the EFPP book series. Today we call them EFPP book series, and we are still working. We are preparing now the newest book following the conference of Belgrade. So they are still there, and I'm honored to be the one keeping alive such a vivid and rich tradition. Yeah. But it was interesting because at the beginning you said that they were called monographs. Yeah.
Yes.
May I say a few words? It just happens that the first idea came from Greece, and it was from Chelsea and myself, and then Effie. And the beginning of the monographs was including some of us. I have been working for the monographs for years and years. And I really enjoy it. But I think that during the process, the people had so many things to do, and they didn't really focus very much on the work that all these books were demanding. And then we have problems with Karnak, because he would like to sell books, and our books sometimes they were selling good, sometimes not. And we made some kind of working group about myself and Vivian, British lady.
Vivian Green.
No, he has come in Sirius later on. I cannot recall her name. And we try to find out what is going on with all this. And perhaps this might be interesting to you. We found that as the time passed, we were focusing much more on the books like a presentation of the conference, who has been stopped, and not something that we would be very careful of its quality. So, because our book was going in the market, and the market does not respect if you're right or not, or if they like you or not. And then perhaps there was the idea that we cannot afford to continue publish books. And there was a decision from the board of the Efpp that, well, we have 4 more books waiting to be published, and then we stop. And unfortunately, they gave it to me to do this. I may say that it was one of the most difficult times that I have passed in my life. Working hard, communicating with people, and trying to publish the books that they were waiting. But at the same time, it was as if I was working for the finish of this. And it was a kind of loss, feelings of sadness. And I was somehow feeling that I'm preparing someone to be buried. It's okay. And that's that was my last days in Efpp, like as a member of the committee. And
but luckily this didn't finish. Yeah, we find a way to continue, and today we have a very good working relationship with Routledge, because today the publisher is Routledge. Yeah, so the monograph has a very beautiful place. Yeah, within Routledge collections.
Well, if you manage to be accepted by Routledge, then even only that, it is enough to be included in the Efpp book among the good books, more or less. We have tried with Routledge, but then we were quite unfortunate or not good enough. And I'm really happy that you continue it, and I'm really happy that this effort to be continued came from a part of the Europe that belongs to the same side somehow. It's we are neighbors somehow.
Truly, we are neighbors and we have shared history. But I believe that there is something to be understood on what you said, Dimitris, because sometimes change, even if it's necessary, if you want to grow, if you want to develop, you have to accept change. But sometimes change, it feels like an ending. It feels like something is coming to an end, and it will never be the same as it was.
But sometimes to change means to stop something and to begin something else.
Yeah, that's
from
true.
A different point of view. Yes, that's true.
That's true, yeah.
But, well, feelings are feelings.
So you remembered you remembered Syros, and that brought to my mind another important tradition of EFPP. If you say EFPP, you say a couple of things, and among them there is the Syros workshop. When I saw the first time the announcement of the Syros workshop, I had the impression of a dream. I said, what is that place? Where is it? It really exists. So I find it one of the most beautiful experiences I had, my first participation, because after that I was coming back again and again. So how was the Syros workshop born?
Well, it was not the only workshop initially. It was the only one that lasted until today. Because at that time, when we started the Summer Syros workshop, and it was, the island was chosen not only for its culture, and but also because John Tsiantis had connections with Syros and the mayor there. And so we were given the best room of this new classical building where we could meet. And it was really a combination of history and presence. It was a combination of exchange of psychoanalytic thinking and swimming together, going to tavernas in the evenings. So this lively combination is that characterized the Summer Syros workshop, and we tried to keep it the same way, not to accept more than 30 colleagues, because the rooms there are quite small and couldn't manage more. Only at the last one, because there was a pressure by colleagues to come, move to another building, which again belongs to the municipality of Syros. Again, a very interesting building, but not as beautiful as the small one where we used to have our meetings. We started, the first one was in May 1998. And since then, every 2 years and that sometimes every 3 years, we had this tradition, and it was always lively. I think, Dimitri, correct me, we started with the invited speakers initially was Margot Guadel from the UK.
Yes, definitely.
And then the second one was Jean Beguin from France, the invited speaker. Then it was Gianna Williams, again from the UK. Then it was Imre Sesodi from Sweden. And then our neighbor and Roberto Basile from Italy. Then it was Luc Moisson from Belgium, who also was a president of the Efpp for some time. Serge Fries from Luxembourg, who gave a beautiful paper. B.D. Ewell from the UK. Then Bob Hiselwood came together with Ricky and Louise Emmanuel. Unfortunately, Louise is passed away, but it was such a lively discussion with all three of them, I remember. Then after that, it was Malis Salomson from Sweden again. So, and then again, we came back to Britain. It was Anne Horn and Athanasios Alexandridis from Greece. And the last one was Regine Pratt, Monica Laniado, and
Monica Laniado was the lady that was trying to remember.
Monica, yes,
Laniado.
yes. And also Clio Bournova from France. So we had this combination of France and Britain, and the language of the Syros Summer Workshop was, although the main papers in the plenary were in, we had two groups, one Anglophone, one Francophone, because there was always this issue within the Effpp, why English is the Effpp language, why not French as well? So at least we tried to keep the intimate discussions in two groups, one Anglophone, one Francophone. And then again, coming back to the plenary, the language was again English, but giving some space at least to the French language. And I know you, Cristina, were were always in the Francophone small group, because although your English looks perfect to me, French.
Yeah, this is because my training is a French training, so this is my first relationship, to say it like that. It's my first professional language, French. Yeah.
So anyway, it is so close to these languages. I mean, Romanian and French are very close. Mm-hmm. Most of people that they know the one language can learn the other quite easily, as I understand.
It's true. It was a long tradition of the French language here in Romania, and also within psychoanalysis. That's why you keep in the Syros workshop both of them, because there is a long tradition of the French language. Also within the psychoanalytical field. But I was listening to you both, and I was having in mind the idea that EFPP, as it was created and then developed, is not only the academic exchange, only about the scientific quality and scientific skills. It's also very much about the human relationships. And this seems one of the most important features of EFPP, human relationships.
May I add a couple of things?
Of course.
What you have said and what perfectly described Effie. But that was the beginning, the European Union. The discussion, for example, about is part of Europe Israel, and we shall accept Israel and or not. It was a fruitful discussion. Yes, we want them together. And all this structure of Syros conference was much more an idea of a kind of a college that says, let's talk together, let's share together a couple of days, thinking and playing somehow together. And that was very fruitful too. That is, I think, that is why it still goes on, because people love it. It's not that I'm going to present them my bright ideas, but well, I'm one of the group who shares. And of course, you can share and you can think much better in your own language than translated to another language. And we found it quite interesting point to include again as many languages as it was possible, but it wasn't possible more than French and English. Yes, there is a kind of. I think it's right what you said. I agree.
Let's hope that in the future we could still do that, because we need more than ever this idea of togetherness and of playfulness. We need it now more than ever.
But we also need, as Dimitris said, the intimacy. And that's why we postponed the 12th Summer Syros workshop, because we couldn't be together the way we want to be together. And we just hope that with a more controlled coronavirus, we could have next summer, the 12th Summer Syros workshop. We don't expect that COVID is going to be completely out of the way, but at least to be controlled, so we can be together in the tradition we have created. And Cristina, you are also part of this tradition now, because you've been to many Syros summer workshops. And it's true that lots of colleagues come back again and again and again. I remember Anne Oxted, who couldn't miss any of the workshops. And as you visited Syros this summer, without the workshop, I think Anne has done perhaps the same or wanted to do the same, because Syros is now a focal point of this EFPP function. Because although we organize it, the Hellenic Association of Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy for Children and Adolescents organizes it, it's always under the auspices of EFPP, and it's always open to the EFPP members first, and then other colleagues who don't belong to the EFPP or who come from other countries. And we had colleagues from Australia, from the States, which is marvelous. But the preference is our colleagues from the EFPP first. So, yes, well, we hope to be there together, because now it's going to be the first online EFPP Day conference on the 25th of September. To be online is something that we try to get used to at the moment, but we lose something.
But I must say, Effie, I can't imagine the Syros workshop online. Yeah.
No
There
way.
is not such thing.
No way.
I've been through many online meetings and conferences, but not Syros workshop.
Absolutely right. Yeah. We
So,
do our best to have a controlled COVID.
Yeah, let's hope for. So one last question just before saying goodbye and putting an end to this lovely discussion. 30 years, that's a lot. Yeah, we are far away from the beginning of EFPP. And I was wondering, through your eyes, you have been there for many years, and through your eyes, what is the most important change within EFPP?
Change. I think we talked a bit before about changes, even to use the bionic term, catastrophic changes. So to destroy something, get rid of something, mourn something in order to allow space for new developments. And I think that the number of EFPP members is something that signifies the change that has been. I was part of it, and then I took over from Peter Mist of the Exchange of Training Institutes, where I met colleagues. I was amazed to meet colleagues from Irkutsk, to meet colleagues from all over remote places in Europe, and not only. And I found that we still speak the same language. So I think there is this change which retains some of the initial characteristics of the EFPP, but also welcomes new and novelty and exchange. I think that's the most important, not to lose things completely, but to retain some and allow new ideas, new colleagues, new members, new functions to take place. I don't know what you think.
I don't know. I'm not able to discuss the changes because I have many times to communicate or to be part of the conference for various reasons. But I think that if we will get the spirit of it, and then there is a kind of approach that has something genuine in it. It's not just a brain thinking. It's a human being connecting and communicating. Well, sometimes at the beginning, you met some people and you were surprised that there is psychoanalysis in that place. I don't know. And now there is not this kind of snob attitude at all. No one. And well, before we will finish, to tell you that I just remember that my mother was a Greek from Romania because her father was
bakery. He was baker.
A baker from Ioannina who drove to Romania, and it's the city of my mother was the it was by the sea, you know it, main city by the sea.
Constanța.
No. A second one, try.
Galați. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Tulcea.
Anyway, you know, so many places that I will not be able to deal with. I mean that there is a kind of not fraternity, of course, but a kind of sharing the same ideas, sharing the same space, the same problems. In Effpp, I have difficult moments, but I have made some friendships for life. Luc Moisson is my best friend, for example. So it's much more than something that had to do with organizing conferences. It's bringing closer the analyst or those who are following psychoanalysis. That's it.
Thank you very much, Effie and Dimitris, for this discussion. I take this opportunity also because I've understood what an important place Greece played within the development of Effpp. So I take this opportunity to thank the both of you for all the contribution Greece had since the beginning and still do, because we are working together a lot. And I may say, I do hope that we still have the chance to dance one more time together in the near future, yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, you have to dance through the internet, and that's not funny.
Not at all, yeah. So, one more time, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Cristina. It was a chance to get together our reminiscences, our memories, and so it became quite alive again in our minds, I think, and that was thanks to you.
Well, thank you very much. Braila was the city of my mother.
Ah, Braila.
And I'm very glad that I met you. And thank you very much for the opportunity to have this kind of wonderful discussion together.